Okay, I think it's video number 4. PPE use. Let's start off with there is much more to the use of PPE ensembles than just putting on the ensemble. Uh, Need to know this. It's imperative that you be proficient in donning the equipment. You also need to know that you must be able to safely function in the suit while performing both simple and challenging tasks. Okay, so being familiar with it will also increase your comfort level. And that's going to help reduce stress, so know that. Reducing the stress can help increase proficiency and your work time. So you can focus more on their job versus wearing the suit. Pre-entry inspection. Need to know, definitely check equipment before you enter into a hazardous environment. That is a pre-entry inspection. Make sure you do that. Pre-entry. A thorough visual inspection should uncover any defects, deformities in protective equipment, confirm all pressure test completion dates, and conduct operational check. Make sure all your zippers are zipped, closures are closed, communication equipment works, and any equipment that will be taken or used in the hot zone. Safety and emergency procedures. While safety and emergency issues involved wearing PPE, that's going to include responders using PPE at hazmat incidents must be familiar with local procedures for going through a technical decon. And we're going to get into the different levels of decontamination as we get to that particular point. Now, anytime emergency responders are to enter in an IDLH atmosphere, know this, they should always work in a team of 2 or more. Always. Minimum of 2 equally trained and equipped personnel should remain outside the IDLH atmosphere in the cold zone. Make sure you know, in the cold zone. And they are ready to rescue other emergency responders. That's your RIT team. So 2 equally trained in the cold zone, and you have to have at least 2 going into the hot zone. Operate within the accountability system. No evacuation and escape procedures. Let's go over this safety briefing. I'm going to add one more thing to other safety emergency issues. After you know evacuation and escape procedures, add this. First on scene. We mentioned this earlier. First on scene, take command and control of the scene and isolate the area. Command and control of the scene, isolate the area. Safety briefing. We need to know that a safety briefing is conducted before the responders enter the hot zone. Need to know that. Some of the information is going to include, we need to know these. Need to know the information is going to be, that's included is the incident status. Need to know that. Need to also know the identified hazards. Need to know that. Description of the site. Another one you need to know. Task to be performed. Expected duration of the task. Escape routes. Make sure you know escape routes. You've done your PPE and health monitoring requirements. You are also incident monitoring requirements. So that could be just air sampling. Communication procedures. Understand, everybody needs to know if there are hand signals involved, everybody knows those hand signals. Review the incident action plan. Add that. Review the incident action plan. Whenever you do your task to be performed, you're going to review the incident action plan. I'm going to add one more to this, that the RIT team is going to be in the cold zone and ready. RIT team in the cold zone and ready. Air management. Anytime a limited air supply is worn, air management is an important consideration. So for a hazmat incident versus a structural fire, the hazmat group or whoever is designated for air management, once you zip up, you go on air, zip your entire suit up, put it together, that is when the clock starts. So let's just say you're wearing most of our hazmat bottles are 60-minute bottles. So let's say you get a good 20 to 30-minute work time. So we'll just say 30-minute work time on a 60-minute bottle. And we're going to allow you to be in there. And let's just say it's on a nice day, it's not too hot, those situations. So what I'm going to do as air management is I'm going to limit you to 30 minutes. So I hit my timer, you've made entry, you're doing the work, whatever you need to do. I'm going to call you at 10 minutes in. Is everybody okay? Maybe I'll call you again at 20 minutes in, or is everybody okay? And then at 30 minutes, I don't care where you're at, I'm going to say, everybody out. Now, during that 10, 20 minute, I'm going to say, check your air. How are you doing? Those sort of things like that. So it's just air management. Emergency procedures should be developed for the responders' loss of air supply, which may vary depending on the authority having jurisdiction. To ensure adequate work time, calculate estimated times for the following tasks: the walk to the incident, return from the incident, decon work time. So you got to remember, you're also limiting them because they're going to have to come back through decon. And so they need time to be able to do that. Responders should have a plan in place for dealing with air emergencies. Many organizations have SOPs that explain calculations designed or designated maximum entry times. Contamination avoidance. Contamination avoidance. The terms contaminations and exposures are sometimes interchangeably, but concepts are very different. Know that contamination is a condition of impurity resulting from a contact or mixture with a foreign substance. Know that the hazardous material has to touch or be touched by another object. So contamination is I'm dirty versus exposure. Exposure is the hazardous material has entered your body. You're subjected to it. That's a key word. You're subjected to it. Inhalation, injection, absorption. Now you're exposed to it. You're subjected to it. Versus contamination, you're dirty and you can wash it off. Most hazmat response will likely include contamination, which can increase the risk of exposure. Avoid contamination as best as possible. We said that earlier in the earlier chapters. As an operations level, try to avoid getting in the product. Best practices, always try to reduce any contact with the product. Avoid walking through and touching the product when possible. Here's a big one I mentioned earlier. Do not kneel or sit on the ground. Contact avoidance is paramount, but allowing a suit to come in contact with the ground may cause chafing or abrasions. Always protect monitoring instruments as best as possible. Communications. Communications capabilities are required for all levels of personal protection. Communication devices may be integrated into the PPE. Other non-emergency communication methods can include pre-designated hand signals, motions, and gestures. Again, you can come up with whatever hand signals. Everything's okay, I got a problem, out of air, tapping on your helmet, whatever hand signals you have. Signals for an entry team emergency should be designated, but everybody before the pre-entry, they need to know those hand signals, and hopefully they have practiced those. At a scene should designate separate channels. So you may have separate radio channels for the entry team, backup personnel, and appropriate safety personnel. Just depends. Should responders lose radio communications or operate in an atmosphere not allowing radio communications, a backup system must be part of the operational plan. Hand signals used as the backup plan should be simple, easy to remember, and distinguishable from a distance. So from a distance, you need to be able to see them. So you need to know some of these hand signals. So let's make sure you remember this. You can say loss of air supply could be this. Suit integrity, whatever you're doing this, doesn't matter. Responder down from an illness, emergencies, loss of radio communications, I'm okay, those sort of things like that. So whatever hand signals you come up with. But make sure that you look over these hand signals in some instance that you might need to have hand signals. So look over that. All responders should follow local protocols. Evacuation protocols typically will involve notifying appropriate personnel, exiting the hot zone as quickly as possible. Emergency signals should indicate that an immediate exit from the hot zone is necessary. Again, same thing as structure fires. It could be audible air horns or broadcast over the radio if you need to leave immediately. Donning and doffing PPE. Donning and doffing PPE, always train with the protective clothing that you will be using in the field. Donning can be quite time-consuming and confusing for a user who is not totally familiar with the garments. Instructions should include with all PPE for total donning and doffing process. Donning of PPE, imperative to follow the manufacturer's department's recommendations for donning. Generic donning procedures that may be included in the agency's procedures. We need to know these. We need to know that pre-select the donning and doffing area in the cold zone, as close to the entry point as possible. So remember, you're going to be donning and doffing in the cold zone. Ensure the donning and doffing area is isolated from distractions. Select an area that is large enough to accommodate all personnel. That's something you need to know. An area large enough to accommodate all personnel donning and doffing. Plan for as many people needed to be involved in the donning procedures. Before starting the donning process, each entry and backup team member should be medically evaluated. So before anybody puts on any gear to hazmat scene, make sure you've had your medical evaluation. Continue hydration, conduct a mission briefing, deploy chemical protective clothing in an organized manner, check all equipment visually and operational prior to donning. Let's go to doffing PPE. Doffing PPE. Many times, the donning supervisor may also be served as the doffing, which is taken off. Will be very helpful based on the person's knowledge of the members and the equipment that were utilized. Upon exit, it can be assumed that the entry team has been contaminated or potentially contaminated by a hazard, thus needing decontamination prior to doffing. Based on the chemical hazards, it may be necessary to have doffing personnel wear lower level of chemical protective clothing. They go in a level A, you may be in a level B. Any level of protection needed for doffing activities will be decided upon the safety officer. Personnel assisting the doffing procedures should watch for signs and symptoms of heat stress. I'm starting to yawn, I'm getting tired. Entry personnel who will be doffing their protective equipment will most likely be hot, tired, and eager to remove the clothing. All doffing procedures should follow manufacturer's directions. All right, let's go over some of these doffing procedures. These are some things you need to know, just like the donning procedures. Doffing equipment should allow assisting personnel to perform the work. Entry team members should only touch the inside. This is key. Know this. They should only touch the inside of the garments and never the outside. Assisting personnel should only touch the outside of the garment. So what that means is if I have the suit on, I should only touch the inside of the suit. If I'm assisting the person taking off the gear, I only touch the outside. So basically what I'm doing, let's just say they have a full encapsulating suit on. Once they've been scrubbed down, gone through decontamination, they step into the cold zone, and now we're getting them out of the suit. What we're going to do is I'm basically I'm going to peel them like a banana. So I'm going to pull them and pull the suit down to where the inside is showing so that they do not touch the outside of it. It is critical to avoid cross-contamination. Once the garment's removed, zip or store so that the inside of the and outside surfaces cannot touch. Some of the things you might do is whenever you're doffing them is if you have a large trash bag or large biological bag, something like that, if it's large enough, you can actually have them step in the bag, peel the suit off of them, and it's in the bag. They step out, you put the bag up, you got it sealed in the bag. You can actually put that in an overpacking drum or whatever you have. All right, and this is definitely something we need to know right here. The last item removed. The last item removed from the entry personnel should be the respirator face piece. The last item moved, the face piece. And it should be removed by the user. So make sure you know that. All entry team and support team members must report immediately to rehab. And make sure that you get your post-medical. Inspection, storage, testing, maintenance, and documentation. You always want PPE, tools, and equipment to perform as expected. Emergency incident is the wrong place to discover problems with protective clothing, respiratory protection, or other tools and equipment. The best way to ensure PPE, tools, and equipment always perform to expectation is following a standard program, and that is for inspection, proper storage, maintenance, and cleaning. All inspection, testing, and maintenance must be conducted in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. Procedures are needed for initial receipt of the PPE, tools, and equipment, and before and after use of or exposure. PPE tools and equipment are initially inspected when purchased. Once the equipment has been placed in service, the organizational personnel perform the periodic inspections. Operational inspections of respiratory protection equipment may occur after each use, daily or weekly, monthly, or annually. Okay, so that's something that's important. Organization must define frequently and type of inspection in respiratory protection policy, and that should follow the manufacturer's recommendation. Care, cleaning, and maintenance schedules of respiratory protection and other equipment should be based on, again, manufacturer's recommendation and NFPA requirements. PPE must be stored properly to prevent it from malfunction. So try not to keep, dust, moisture, sunlight, damaging chemicals. Keep it away from those things. Follow your manufacturer's recommendations. Always keep records on all inspection, testing, and maintenance procedures. Follow your SOPs. You also need to know that after using your PPE at an incident, you need to know that you need to fill out associated reports or documentation as required by the authority having jurisdiction. Now, these reports that are required may include an inspection form, contaminated gear forms, deprovisioning forms, not quite sure what those are, or any others as required by the authority having jurisdiction. So just make sure that you know that you will have to fill out associated reports after you're using your PPE at an incident. Okay, so that takes us into spill control. And what I'm going to do, we are 20 minutes into this video, so I'm going to stop right there for the day. And it looks like we are close, but not quite done, so I'm guessing we still have another couple of videos left. Okay, so this is number 4 that I'll post also. See you on the next one.